Hey, what's up, guys? This is Audie from ShastryNation, and today we're going to be talking about the human impact on the environment and the world in general. Alright, so now that you're back from the intro, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the human impact on the environment. Now, by environment I mean like the whole world. And all the environments and the places, forests, habitats, things like that consist the world in general. Okay, so yeah, this is about it. We have one more video where I take all of the math in AP Biology and put it together in one video so that it's a good review. And that's about it. I'll be done with biology. I'll take a few weeks, probably a few weeks break. Maybe work on some other videos, and then I'll come back with chemistry probably next. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so usually this is a general trend. Oh, my bad. All right, this is the general trend, but as human population increases, so does the impact that we as humans have on the Earth. And usually the impact is a negative one, and so as and now you have to consider that as human population increases, and it has almost exponentially for the past few years. um, we're also becoming more technologically inclined. We're developing new technologies, things like that, where we can sustain ourselves, but we don't really, care about the environment or the other species, things like that share this earth with us, I guess. Um, so some of the effects of human population growth. Oh, that's some phone in the background. Okay, so some of the effects, or some of the things that we do, are habitat. Oh, habitat destruction. Right? Habitat destruction. Now, habitat destruction being like, we cut down forests in order to build houses, things like that, you know, um, and we usually, most of the area we've taken up, we've made it almost uninhabitable by other organisms for the most part. Otherwise, other than that, we've done a lot of destruction, to the habitats in the world. We've changed them almost completely. We've put in concrete, things like that, and now, uh, other organisms can't live on those. They can't live off of concrete. They need grass. They need, all these other factors, abiotic factors and biotic factors that they need to sustain themselves, and we've basically taken those away by destroying their habitat. All right, so now the effects would be another effect, or something that we cause, would be like a decrease in population. Okay, and so this goes hand in hand with like the habitat destruction and all the other stuff that I'll talk about. Now I'm only going to talk about some of this. You can listen to the news, and I bet you anything that there will be something on global warming, or trash or something like that. Oil spills, all this type of stuff going on, that you can probably infer and make your own decisions about this type of an issue. But I'm only going to talk about the few things that are important or stand out to me, at least. Okay, so decrease in population, which is I guess, the effect of habitat destruction and things like that, and all the other things that we do. Um, it affects the species distribution. So species. This eye is really weird. Okay, distribution, by that I mean, oh, okay, Adobe Acrobat Reader. All right. Anyways, Species distribution meaning oh, by the way, I just turned on my computer, so if you see anything pop up on screen, that's because of that. Usually like programs like Skype and things like that will pop up and be like, hey, you should sign in or something like that. They'll boot. And so that's what's, if it happens at all, that's what's happening. All right. So, anyways, well, species distribution, that's referring to like, um, because of the habitat destruction, and we'll talk about like habitats being split in two and things like that. Species are going to be distributed in different places, and if you remember back to other videos that I've done, where we talk about the creating like different populations, things like that. New genes are going to form, causing the species to become speciated. And there, you may even produce new species because of the distribution changes that we inflict on the animal population, in the world. And then lastly, we have the major one, which is the extinction of um, species. Okay. Now the extinction. Oh, okay. The extinction of species, is probably like the last, thing that could possibly, last and the worst thing that could possibly happen, because there's nothing much that we can do after that point. Now there are developing technologies to bring back, you know, they are developing technologies to bring back species based on DNA and things like that. Now, what do I feel about that? I don't think that is a very good thing for humanity, because it's like if you wrote everything in pencil for all your life, um, you'd be you'd be willing, you'd be okay with making mistakes. Now, if you wrote, once you switch to pen or something like that, where you can't erase those mistakes, you won't make that many mistakes. You'll think about it before you write it down. Now, the same thing can be said here. If we start bringing back species, extinct animals back into, back into the world, we won't learn our mistakes, and we won't, try to fix it, because we can just bring them back, right? We don't have to worry about, what we're doing. We just do it and then move on. And then when we need to, we'll bring back the animals, which is not a good way to think about, development. We should be sustainable and not just, grow. All right. So, now one major example I can think of this is the panda. Now, I'm sure there are other, hundreds of examples of extinct species, but the panda is probably the one that's, most uh, inflicted on by humans. Humans are the ones that have caused it the most. There's like certain species of tigers, things like that, but panda is probably the most noticeable one, I guess. All right, so next thing I'll talk about is pollution. Now, pollution you probably hear about in the news all the time. Now, there's like a few major types of pollution, but like the one I'm going to talk about now is probably the biggest type, and it's the combustion of fossil fuels. So combustion of Okay. Now, combustion of fossil fuels. So fossil fuels will probably be some sort of, obviously, fossil fuels is a pretty general term, but like, if you take into account like, gasoline or something like that, where it's, or, you take into account like propane or something like that, usually you're going to have some sort of carbohydrate, plus oxygen gas, and that would make H2O plus CO2. And that would be the general formula. Now, water is fine because it's just water, right? But CO2 is not okay for the, the environment. Now, what the CO2 will do is will actually go into the ozone and start causing holes, and that's what's really the issue, and that's what scientists fear. Now, the CO2, as you know, if you go back to the photosynthesis video, is actually used by plants. But the problem here is that we don't have enough plants to actually, combat the CO2 pollution problem. We're producing way too much CO2, way higher than the natural amount. Not only because of cars, trains, planes, factories, and other things like that. Not only because of that, but we also have a huge amount of humans, so we have a lot of human beings too that are also breathing out carbon dioxide, causing the carbon dioxide levels to go higher and higher and higher. Now, another problem that this will cause, the CO2 pollution, is acid precipitation. Okay, acid precipitation it's basically acid rain, and all the smog and stuff like that in the air will accumulate obviously into the water and cause it to, when it rains, it'll come down into a certain area. Now that rain will be, it'll have acids and stuff like that and harsh chemicals in it. Now this will, soak into the soil, so it'll damage the soil. It'll damage the soil, first of all, which is an issue. But more, the pH of the soil, some examples, I guess, would be like the pH of the soil will change. Okay, so the pH of the soil will change, which is an issue. Or, you could almost make the acid precipitation, or, the harsh chemicals in the precipitation or in the rain could actually cause, the soil to be, to not allow anything to grow there, so I'm blanking on the word, but it'll cause things not to be able to grow there, causing, more deforestation, things like that, because we need to support the population that we have, that we've accumulated almost 6 to 7 billion people now on Earth. So, all right. So the last thing here is the greenhouse effect. Now, I'm pretty sure you've probably heard of this. The greenhouse effect is where the CO2 gas will actually cause heat to stay in the atmosphere instead of escaping. See, let me get a different color. Okay, so let's say, no, I'll probably use that. Okay, so let's say this is the atmosphere. Now what'll happen is that, this, if we say that this would be and so we had this green area right here be the Earth. What'll happen is the sun ray, actually it's like this, I guess, yeah, it's like a wave. All right, so this will touch here. Some of it will obviously go here, but a lot of it will bounce off and go back into the into outer space, and so we'll lose a lot of the heat. But what's happening here is, if we come back and we say, okay, this blue is this, is the CO2 in the atmosphere, this will actually keep the heat in there, and so it'll come through. So the new heat will come through, but it will only bounce off like right here. And so what's happening here, and that's what we talk about, scientists talk about when they're talking about global warming, and that's what's happening here. The heat is being kept into the environment by the atmosphere, and it's not causing, it's causing a lot of trouble. It's causing the temperatures to rise. And I think I forget what the stats are, but you can probably go and search up the graphs. But, you can see that there's a general rise in the temperature over the years. And so, it could cause devastating effect, because if the once the temperatures go too high, we would not have, all the water would be evaporated, things like that, cause water shortages. Not good to have, and so that's why, we're trying to cut down on, pollution and stuff like that, where, we now it's too late almost. It's almost too late, to actually do anything. Now, lastly, or, one of the major things that could happen, that problems that we will cause are catastrophes. Um, Catastrophes are, like the BP oil spill, so the like oil spills out in the Gulf of Mexico, which they're still cleaning up. They're still, and that was back in, um, that was back in fifth. Yeah, that was back in fifth grade, so like 2000. I can't remember. But yeah, that was back in fifth grade, and I'm in 11th grade. So yeah, I mean, it's been like 6 years, and they're still cleaning it up. And so that's like the environmental effect that it's had. Now, in the area we have the bird population, things like the fish populations, things like that, growing deformed, etc. Deformed. They're not being, they're not growing correctly, things like that. And it's affecting the population pretty horribly almost, because of a mistake that humans have made. Um, yes, they are cleaning it up, but it's taken years, and they're still. I don't think they're still done yet. Yeah, there's still a pocket of oil in the area, that's that fish are going in, because they don't know any better. They're going in. They're eating stuff there. They're eating the plants, things like that are growing there, and obviously, like the birds and bigger fish will come in and eat those fish, and all that oil and things like that will affect their affect the growth of the fish, and that's why all these fish are being deformed, they're dying, things like that. Okay, and so lastly, I'm almost done here. So lastly, what I'll talk about is agriculture. Now agriculture is not. I'm not saying agriculture is bad, but in a lot of third world countries, they neglect to um, they neglect to oh, there goes my iPad. Okay, but anyways, they neglect to like uh, think about certain things, certain sustainable issues, and so one of the major like ways, waste that a lot of countries and a lot of farmers in third world developing nations and things like that do is the for example, the slash and burn method, where in order to make more, so what they'll do is, you'll have a huge field of a rainforest or something like that, and this is what happens in Brazil and things like that. So you'll have a huge field of rainforest, and so farmers will come in, and they need to grow some of, and so that's fine. Cut down a few trees, set up a location to grow things, and then obviously irrigate it correctly. Don't waste water, things like that. But no, what they do is they come in, they slash it, they burn it, and so you can't even use the plants. You can't even use the trees anymore because they just burned it. Okay. And so then what happens is, they'll grow their plants, and seeing that they don't have any, obviously all the nutrients will be gone, because the plants will use those nutrients from the soil, and all of that will be gone. So then what happens? They move on to another plot of land where they'll go back, cut down all the trees, burn it all, and then grow another, and then so they'll keep going, forever until all of the forests have been gone, I guess, or I don't know. And so that's been happening for years. And I don't know, I forget, there's like statistics there, and it's pretty scary stuff. It's like every minute 400 acres of rainforests are cut down because of the slash and burn method of growing. Now, there are some there are ways to combat this. You could grow other, you could switch off plants. And so the main issue with this one is they're only growing one crop, so it's called monocropping. And so what they could do is they could grow multiple crops actually, and one type of plant will allow the soil to recuperate from the loss of minerals, because that plant will use other minerals. And so, okay, let's say, for example, you had mineral A and then you had mineral B. And so plant A, so then we'll say that in like red. Okay, so plant A needs mineral A, and then plant B needs mineral B. And so what you'll do is you'll plant A, right? And so you'll use up mineral A, and so you'll harvest that, and then what you'll do is you'll plant B, and then you'll use up mineral B. But in that process, you'll gain back mineral A. So you'll get back mineral A, right? Oh, 1 second. Okay, so then you'll get back mineral A, and then you'll be able to, grow plant A again, and then switch off. And so what you can do is you can create two different types of crops, but also, you can work on a small patch of land, not affecting the environment too much. But, most third world countries, they don't really care. Or I don't think it's that they don't care, they just probably don't know. And, that's you can't really do anything about that. And yeah, it's stuff that we need to fix as human beings, with education and things like that. All right, so lastly, urbanization. Urbanization, obviously you should know that this is a problem. We're urbanizing way too fast, and so this will come back into habitat destruction and fragmentation. So habitat. Okay, and that's about it. I've already talked about fragmentation and destruction before. So fragmentation, what'll happen is you'll have you'll separate let's say you're trying to make a road or like a highway or something like that. You're going to, cut out a piece of land, obviously, that stretches across, let's say, a forest. And so what'll happen is you're separating that ecosystem, because none of those animals will actually move across the road and things like that. It's very unlikely for animals to do that, because it's a new environment for them. They don't know what it is. And so you're causing a problem, because you're separating those two populations, and now one population has become two populations of the same species, which could develop new traits, things like that, which isn't good, because you're forcing speciation, and you're forcing things to evolve when they shouldn't be, and so that's the thing, that's the issue right here with fragmentation. All right, so yeah, that's about it. We as humans are horrible species on Earth, and we're the ones that are causing all this destruction. But if we still have time to adapt and think of more sustainable ways to develop ourselves and become, if we become more environmentally conscious, we could save many of these species that are suffering from our doing. I don't know. That's for you to decide how we should do it, things like that. Hey, if you really feel like empowered about this, then you should mail your senator or your house your representative and get that, passed in law, and maybe make a change in the world and how we do things. Now, yes, the government is implementing a lot of plans, and things like that, with CO2 caps and things like that, which are good. But the toll has already been done. The damage has already been done. We can't really do anything at this. We can only even if the damage has already been done. You know what I mean? We've already done so much. We can't really fix it now. It's too late, almost. But yeah, okay, that's about it. I'll end it at that, and I will see you guys on the next one.